Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Celtic Way morning briefing for Tuesday, the 8th of August. My name is Ryan McGinlay, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Tony Haggerty, Haggerty10 on the Twitter handle. Tony, how you doing this morning?
Very well, yourself? Always good.
Yeah, things are good. Yeah,
always
can't
good.
complain.
Talking about Celtic's always good, you know what I mean? So, yeah.
It's not a job. It's not a job. It's what I do anyway. So you might as well get used to it. You know. Thanks to everybody for joining us in the comments so far. We really do appreciate it. We're probably going to open up the show as well with your comments. So if you can get your questions in, we'll do our best to answer as many questions as you can. Once we stop talking about the first topic of discussion today, which seemed to be catching a lot of headlines. But before we start, if I could just direct everybody, as always, down below to the ticker tape. If you subscribe to the Celtic Way website, you'll be supporting top quality football journalism covering the club you love, which is Celtic. If you visit www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe, then you'll get articles from myself, from Tony Haggerty, from Aidan McDonald on the game, on analysis, and scouting pieces. I'm sure there'll be a scouting piece over the next few days regarding Celtic's newest maybe acquisition. I don't know, target acquisition. It seems as if it's somewhere in between the two at this moment in time. You'll also be getting instant match analysis, big interviews from Tony. And if you subscribe to the YouTube channel, you'll be getting daily morning briefings. So if you click the bell, then you will get instant notifications as to when we go live. It really does help us. If you subscribe to both, then you really are you're doing us a favour with regard to these free videos. That's what makes us possible at the end of the day. So if you are interested, then please give us a subscribe on both platforms. But Tony, I think it's best to just start on what seemed like the breaking news last night. I was off my phone for about an hour. I go back on it, and all of a sudden Celtic are getting linked with a player. Just as soon as one player is leaving, as confirmed by his dentist, it looked like yesterday, another player comes in. One Swede for another, it seems to be. Elfsborg's,
yes.
Yeah. Reports in Sweden last night were linking Gustaf Lagerbielke to Celtic. He is a 23-year-old centre-half that plays for Elfsborg in the Swedish league. When these players are linked, it then seems as if their highlight videos come out 2 minutes later. People get a hold of them, including for myself. I did tweet out one or two last night. Just judging by those videos and by the sort of mood around this transfer. What's your opinions on this? I know it's only been 12 hours or so, or maybe even more. But what's your opinion on this move, this potential deal that could happen? And it seems as if it's going quickly.
My first thought is the swiftness of it. I was delighted that Celtic haven't kind of hung around. So obviously there's players on databases, isn't there? And they've had success with Swedish defenders before. So it's kind of tried and tested. And look back to the likes of Mjällby, obviously Starfelt as well. And it seems a kind of like for like, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And the boys playing for Elfsborg, who are currently top of the Swedish league. He's highly rated. He got his first cap in January, didn't he? He scored five goals, I believe, in the last year, all headers.
Wow.
So they were just talking off air, and I was saying, well, if he does sign for Celtic and he's got a wee bit of scoring prowess, it has to be Born Slippy's Underworld every time he scores, doesn't it? That's his music with that clip, Lager, Lager, Lager. There you go. That'll be his nickname, Lager. But yeah, I guess 6'3". You know my thoughts on big defenders and big players, Ryan. There's always an extra layer of security there, isn't there? Kind of comfort blanket when you see big rugged defenders. You know, loved Denier, I loved Van Dijk, I loved Paul Elliott, I loved Mark Reaper, I loved Darren Stubbs, I loved Mjällby, I loved Valharan, I loved Bobo. I just think, guys who are big can win the ball in the air, and that's what I ask them to do at all times. See when the ball's in the air, go and win it. See when it's on the deck, clear your lines. We work in finesse and style later. But I want my defenders to defend, and by all accounts, he's, bit of a towering and rugged centre half who likes to play. I know you put a clip up of a crossfield pass, stuff like that. Very Ronald Koeman-esque. Don't know how many of them he's done, but yeah, I mean, he ticks a few boxes, doesn't he? It seems to be that Celtic have, in the the highly likely event that Carol Starfelt was going to leave Celtic have kind of got the kind of ducks lined up in a row, haven't they? And have gone. I believe that the same agent that was involved in Starfelt deal went across to see him at the weekend there, kept a clean sheet and helped Elfsborg stay top of the league. So it is moving. It's moving very fast, moving rapidly. So you would expect that Gustaf Lagerbielke, to all intents and purposes, will become a Celtic player sooner rather than later. So, and I quite like the fact that if that's, 5 headers is decent, Ryan. Celtic need that kind of presence in both boxes to prevent goals and also to score goals, because it's something we've not had for a long time, is it? Like a real contributor, defensive wise, i.e. a defender scoring a lot of goals. I know Carol Starfelt and Cameron Carter-Vickers have had a smattering of goals, but you wouldn't label them prolific. So 5 in the last year is not bad, and if he can continue that kind of scoring rate at Celtic, if he becomes a Celtic player, then I'd be quite chuffed at that.
Yeah, me too. I think he also, just as a bit of a personal opinion, I think he fits the mould in terms of the terms of the age profile that he brings, as well as the potential that he does bring in. 23 years old, he'd be replacing somebody that's 28. I think there's been a lot of talk, especially over the last 24 hours, about the fee that Carol Starfelt is going to get. Now, I know he's 28 and in the prime of his career, but for defenders, sometimes that isn't even profitable at that point, because you never know when your peak is going to end. One minute you could drop a clanger, and then you're on the decline. So I think the fact that it seems as if Celtic are going to make their money back on Carol Starfelt, and I'm okay with that, because Celtic have got the value for money on the park in that partnership with Carter Vickers over the last 2 seasons. Basically, you've had him for 2 seasons and you're getting your money back. That doesn't sound so bad when you think of the five trophies out of 6 that he's won on his watch alongside Carter Vickers. And now Carter Vickers he'll be paired alongside players such as Nawrowski and Lagerbielke, who are more his age, who might even be upgrades to Starfelt down the line. So I think this is a very, very exciting move.
I'm all for it. The minute we heard that Carol Starfelt was leaving, I think everybody was like, oh no, who's going to come in? But that's down to the scouting department, isn't it? And there's clearly been forward planning there, succession planning, because this Carol Starfelt moving away for personal reasons has been in the offing for a couple of weeks now. Well, certainly it's been rumbling for certainly a few days. So I'm glad that Celtic have acted swiftly on this. I was even more glad that the manager said, yeah, we'll be getting a centre half. He looked fully in control when he was asked on Saturday about Carol Starfelt's situation. There was no panic. It was Carol Starfelt's looking to take up an opportunity, get a chance to go to one of the top leagues. He said, that's fine, it's up to him, but we will be bringing in a centre half. So there was no dubiety, there was no grey area. Those words, we will be bringing in a centre half, because he wanted 4 competitive centre halves, he said, didn't he? That was what he said, 4. So to me, that was a kind of jump out from, a simple question about Carol Starfelt. I was like, yes, Brendan, keep talking. So clearly they had somebody in mind, that somebody probably being Lagerbielke. So obviously what was being done in the background as Brendan was speaking on Saturday, so it must have been because he's the agent, Carol Starfelt's agent, was out scouting him and watching him play at the weekend on Saturday, I believe. So yep, I'm quite happy the way things are going at Celtic, and if he does come in, I'm happy that it's been concluded swiftly and not dragging on to the end of the window, and then although Celtic have made use of the end of the window and transfer deadline day and brought in some decent players, but I just like that planning and organisation. It strikes me as being everybody on the same page and knowing what they're doing. And if Gustaf Lagerbielke comes in, then I'm sure he will complement Cameron Carter-Vickers and Nawrowski very well. And I'm trying not to get too excited. I just hope that, I hate that phrase, but I hope Celtic can get the business done and get it over the line, as they say. But there doesn't seem to be any real kind of hitches. I think the clubs are just agreeing a fee just now, aren't they? I believe it's about 3.4 million euros, which is about £3 million, isn't it?
That would be a record for Elfsborg as well.
Yeah, so Yeah, so I'm chuffed at that. Glad they decided quickly about a replacement, and it's certainly a market that Celtic know in terms of Swedish defenders. We've had success in the past. That's no guarantee that Lagerbielke would be a success, but as a general rule of thumb, if it's a well they've drank from before and they're continuing to drink from, and I think Celtic will reap the benefits of that. And as you pointed out, the box ticking, how young he is and what he brings, and also, Swedish internationals just had one cap for Sweden at 23, and he got that in January, so he's clearly highly rated. So I just flick this up. Pete McGee, what do you look like when you're too excited, Tony? I wish I had a video.
You have to scrape him off the ceiling.
I wish I had a mobile phone video of how I reacted when Tom Rodgers scored in the Invincible game, but
me too.
I don't. Yeah, that was excitement personified, Pete. But yeah, believe me, I can. I try and keep a professional head on when we do these things. But yeah, my insides are saying, good. I hope it happens. But yeah, Ryan, it's good news, isn't it? It kind of lessens the blow of Starfelt leaving. And I think lots of people, the Celtic supporters' opinion on Starfelt was polarised, wasn't it? But I think all in all, 2 years, 5 trophies, didn't lose a league game when partnered with Cameron Carter-Vickers. That's pretty stellar. And I think history will be very kind to him. If you want to be churlish, you can, pick in, individual mistakes, and everybody knows what they were and we'll highlight them. But I think he was a competent player, wasn't he? He did the job, didn't he? Let's put it that way. He did the job he was brought in to do, help rebuild Celtic under Ange and make them a successful team. And he goes with our fondest regards. And if he has chosen to be with his partner, then good luck to them both. It's life. That's a life kind of situation that you can't account for, Ryan. So if Jacinta and Carol Starfelt are deeply in love and want to be together, then wonderful. I say good on them, and it's Celtic's loss, I guess, on both counts for both of those players. But you wish them every future happiness, and I'm sure they'll remain Celts at heart, won't they? Because they've been touched by the wonderful football club and entity that is Celtic, and I'm sure that they'll wish Celtic all the best in the future as well. But you thank them for the service, but you have to move on, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a blow both on and off the pitch, and losing Jacinta and Carol Starfelt, because they both seem like decent people off of the pitch as well as good players on it. So it was a bit of a double blow. It looks as if Starfelt is going to leave the club, with how concrete these links do look to Lagerbielke. Then you would expect that to be finalised, honestly, in the next few days or so. You'd say the next day or two, because it looks as if it's all concluded. His dentist was confirming best of luck in Spain with the Spain emoji. Celtic need a fill-in, and it's going to be Lagerbielke in the centre half position.
Hey.
I actually stole that off of somebody in the comments, so I can't even take that too much. But just having a look at Lagerbielke's career, because he's 23 years old, but he's had quite a few teams in his early career. Just looking at just quickly his Wikipedia page, he made his debut for his youth team, Djursholm, but then he moved to AIK, one of the bigger teams in Sweden. Then went to Sollentuna, then Västerås, and then he moved to Elfsborg in 2021. He went out on loan last season to Degerfors, who are also in the Swedish top flight. But I was reading what a couple of their fans were saying. It was either a couple of their fans or a couple of Elfsborg fans that were keeping a close eye on Lagerbielke, and they said that he was the best defender in Sweden. He was the standout player. He really did stand out, even for a team that was mid-table in the Swedish top flight. So he came back, and basically the reason why he wasn't getting a game at Elfsborg is because they had quite an already developed partnership. One of their players went to the MLS, I believe, and then that freed up a space for him. So he came into the side, and he's been an ever-present for Elfsborg. Perhaps one of the reasons why they are challenging for the league just now, and that very much is a surprise in that league too, because there was also people online saying that would be the equivalent of a team like Hearts or Hibs winning the league in Scotland, because you've got your favourites in Sweden. Malmo are obviously one of the bigger teams in that league. Helsingborg have won it as well a couple of times. A team like Elfsborg, I think this is perfect for Celtic to bring in a player like this that has maybe not overachieved, but he's been exposed in a good way in a title winning team, or a team that is winning and winning games throughout the season. If he can come in and bring that winning mentality to Celtic, then I think he'll be a great fit. He's just made his debut for Sweden against Iceland in January, as you quite rightly said. So, you're getting him before he becomes too much of an international that they would demand too big a fee. And also the fact that Ajax were apparently interested in him as well. I think that tells you all you need to know about the players, especially with the Ajax are scouting. I know they don't get it right all the time with their players, but it's a bit of a rule of thumb. If Ajax are interested, much like how if Union Berlin were interested in Nawrowski, then these scouting systems work. So he must be quite a good player, Tony.
We spoke about this before, didn't we, when we were talking about players that were coming in and fitting the model and the prototype, and he fits all that, but it's getting these guys in before they, say, hit the big time per se. They hit the big time when they come to Celtic and then take their career, hopefully, in an upward trajectory, but it's getting them at that optimal point, isn't it? And there are such things as late developers, and I don't really pay much attention to players' back career. It's the here and the now. And he is, he's a Swedish internationalist, and Celtic could be getting a decent player for not a great or a heavy financial outlay, which further down the line you can reap the rewards from. And that's what Celtic are adept at doing, plucking these nuggets and getting them at that right time. He's 23, he's now about to enter the next chapter of his career if he does sign for Celtic. And it's up to the player then, isn't it? And I love what Rodgers said the other day about Turnbull, and I put it in the newsletter. It's his responsibility. It's every player's Celtic's responsibility. Brendan Rodgers will make them a better player, but it's their responsibility to perform consistently and make themselves an automatic starter or an automatic pick. And I think now you'll find with somebody like Lagerbielke, if he does sign, it's his responsibility to show why a club like Celtic and a club like Ajax were interested in him, are interested in him. He'll now have that platform. You'll have the Champions League as well if he comes in. And go and shine. Go and shine and be the player that everybody thinks you are. You earned your first Swedish cap at 23 in January there. Now go on and show the world, show a bigger audience your talent. And I think that's the great carrot that Celtic can dangle in front of these players. You show your talent to a wider audience. The biggest audience comes to Champions League matches, but also you can come to a team where you're used to winning and winning every week, and winning silverware and being successful, but developing wonderful habits that stand you in good stead for the rest of your career. And Celtic has shaped many a career. And Virgil van Dijk is always extolling the virtues of Celtic, what it did for him in terms of a mentality. There's a mentality that you have to be a Celtic player. Win, seconds last, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, but it's also you have to peak and keep peaking every game, not just one game in every three. And it's a culture shock for a lot of players. They don't understand it, or they've came from a league where the demands aren't as rigorous or as strenuous, and or physically and mentally, telling, and it takes its toll. And some players can handle it, and some can't. But that's what you want if you're a footballer. That's what you crave in life. You want to be playing against the top players in the top competition. So if Lagerbielke does come to Celtic, he's got all that in front of him. That's something to look forward to, isn't it? Which you can understand why the Korean players were desperate to come to Celtic, because they know that and I think that's what Celtic, as I said, are adept at, identifying these guys at the right time, 22, 23-year-olds who are reaching a kind of peak. I include Odin Thiago Home in that too, and so I'm excited about him. as well. And I think coming to Celtic under this particular manager is the best thing for a lot of those young players or younger players or, mid-20s players, early to mid-20s players, because they will learn under what we already know is an elite level manager who has a list of improving footballers the length of his arm. You can name them, and he will make players better. And if I think Celtic can polish these rough diamonds, as you like to call them, for want of a better phrase, and make them something approximating the article, which then allows other clubs to take them off your hands for suitable recompense. And Celtic's kind of got that nailed down in those terms. And as long as they come round, and however long they're here for, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and give 100% to the club and continue Celtic's successful kind of trajectory that they've been on in the past few years, the season that shall not be named being the exception to that rule.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say that season, although we talk about it, we try and not talk about it too much. I think there are some blessings that have got to be taken in disguise with regard to that, because it allowed a refresh in the recruitment side of things. I think now Celtic are more strict with their transfer policy. They now know that they need to go all in with transfers in order to get the best out of them. That means selling players at their optimum value rather than keeping them. I think you've seen that with Ayer, Edward, Christie, etc. That if you don't sell, in Jam too, that if you don't sell players at their optimum when the market is giving them the best price, or when teams are giving their best offers for the player in which they can leave at the best price, then players become unsettled. I think you might see that with some players even later on this summer, with regard to maybe Hatate. If Hatate wants to leave, I'm not saying that he does want to leave, but the murmurings are that he probably will like to leave down the line, whether that be this summer or next summer. You've just got to let go of players when they're at their best, and when they're when they're when they're going to cost the most money for other teams. But just on Hatate for a minute, I know you wrote today or on the site today about David Turnbull and about his sort of renaissance in the team. I know Celtic have been linked with another couple of midfielders as well over the last 24 hours. No surprises to know where they come from with regard to the City group. McAtee and Tommy Doyle, they were both part of Sheffield United's promotion clinching team in the Championship last season. I know it's more players that are linked to the City group. You don't want to be City's feeder club, but they're two very high quality youngsters that are making it onto City's benches for Community Shield games, so they must have something about them. Would you be for these deals if they were to happen, even on a loan with an option to buy?
I'm only for these deals if it's kind of specific to Hatate leaving or something like that, right? If Hatate leaves, then you need quality to come in, and I think Celtic are maybe saying, okay, I think there's maybe some kind of succession planning there if Hatate does go. But I said yesterday, I'm loath to let Hatate leave. The only time I'll believe Hatate wants to leave is if the player comes out and says it himself. I don't care about body language, or people putting up, videos of how he walked past the fans the other day.
It's a dangerous precedent.
Signing autographs and stuff like that. You don't know what's going on in a player's head or their personal circumstance or what they're doing. You can clip that up to make them look, really poor. But, Hatate's a Celtic player just now. Scored a wonderful goal against Bilbao in the pre-season friendlies. He's not doing anything that I think's untoward or not, suggesting to me that he wants a move away. Could be wrong in that, but all players want to play. So he might have been annoyed on Saturday that he didn't start, and that's he just wanted to get his head down and go home. So sometimes you get a raw deal players with these kind of clipped up videos and stuff like that, and and then everybody piles onto it and stuff. What will be with Hatate. I don't think for a minute that he was, he's chucked it or, his body line was saying he's out the door, because he came on and he made a valid contribution on Saturday, Ryan. And I always get back to it when Andy was talking about, when players are coming on, you're getting minutes, so you have to make the most of those minutes and impact the game. And Hatate did, and he'll continue to impact football matches forever, for however minutes he gets, 70, 20, 15, 75 or 90, because he's a wonderful footballer, and he's one that I'd love to keep. But in saying that, if he has to leave, and then Celtic are maybe looking at these two Man City guys, then yeah, and they've been part of a promotion winning season in one of the toughest leagues in England, arguably the toughest in terms of the style of football that's played and what you need to be a success down there. Lots of big clubs in that championship. So I think if they've cut their teeth in that and they've done very well, and as you see, they're in the squad for the Community Shield, Man City squad for the Community Shield, then they're doing something right, aren't they? And again, Celtic would be doing something right. These are persons of interest, and if you're forced to ask the question, then I would be asking the question, because there is no point in having a tie-in with the likes of Man City to not utilise that to your own benefit, right? Been done before, Paddy Roberts, Denier, so if that's the case, then Man City have a plethora of outstanding young talent, but these particular pair have played games, Ryan, and that's what I like about those two. They're battle hardened, because that's a tough league. If you've ever watched a game in the Championship, put yourself through it. But here's Francis coming in, and I'm not wishing Rio away. He is a wonderful talent. Ryan will agree with that. But if that's the outcome for, you're getting building blocks in place, then I'm all for that, because I think these guys could come in and make a significant contribution. But there's a lot of ifs and buts and maybes there, isn't there, in that? But I'm looking at, since the links have came, I was looking at like Sir Tommy Doyle, and yeah, he ticks a few boxes, doesn't he? And what impresses me most is that they have played in that championship down in England. They're not coming from, well, they are young players, but they're not just coming from academy football. They've played real football, real competitive, hurly-burly football, physical stuff that which would be on a par with what they would come up against in Scotland. So yeah, again, I'm loath to sell Hatate. I don't want Hatate to leave. I think he's a phenomenally gifted footballer. But if Hatate turns around and says he sees his future being elsewhere, then fine. And if that's what Celtic are trying to line up in terms of replacements, certainly short-termism with those kind of replacements. But yeah, it would. I guess it would be appealing. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The two of them seem like, I think Tommy Doyle is more of an assister and a provider in the team, whereas McAtee scores quite a few goals. I think he got 9 goals in the league last season for Sheffield United on when they were on course to get their promotion. Who knows? They might still both end up back at Sheffield United. They might have been making permanent signings before then bringing in some loan players. But if Celtic were to get players of those quality in with loans with options to buy, then you would have to assume that Rio Hatate would be leaving the club, because otherwise it would just be an overflow of midfielders. You think about the players that Celtic would have to keep happy. You've got McGregor, you've got Iwata in that position, you've got Kwon, then you've got the Oldenholm, Turnbull, O'Reilly, Hatate potentially. And that's not even including players like Summers as well, who want to break into the team. Midfield is a very congested area. You want it to be a congested area because that's the way that position of the field is already. You want players to be combative and fighting for a place, because then they'll do that on the pitch as well as off it in training. So yeah, I think if Hatate was to leave, and I'm not saying that he will, but every player has their price at the end of the day, and he has spoke a lot in the summer about wanting a new challenge. If a new challenge does come up, then if you put 2 and 2 together, I keep on mentioning Brighton. Brighton are going to get about 80-90 million pounds for Moises Caicedo. I'm not saying that Celtic should charge that for Rio Hatate. We can't. We're not in that. Celtic aren't in that sort of stratosphere. But even like 20% of that would be great, or just like a sort of 20 million odd, 15-20 million. I think would cause Celtic to part with their midfielder, but you don't want to sell him on the cheap. You want to get as much money as you can. He's 25 years old, just coming into the peak of his career. I'm not wishing him away, but I'm just being realistic with the fact that every player has a price, and if that price is met by a team, then I think Hatate will be keen to move on to try his hand somewhere else. And that's just the way the model works now. Unfortunately, I know I keep on barking on about the model, but you've got to be all in on this, otherwise it won't work. There's got to be a mid to high level of turnover every season for players. That's just how you drive profits, and then you bring them in with younger players, because I think Hatate's 25 just now. If you were to bring in those two Man City players, I think they're 21 and 22. So you're bringing in younger players that are battle hardened, that are used to playing in the rough and tumble of the Championship. We got a player from League One in Matt O'Reilly, who's well up for the fight in Scotland and in Europe. So, I mean, if you can get an even better player than O'Reilly for the midfield, then... And you think about that as well, because Brendan Rodgers can improve these players as well. That is a big pull for these players. They were working under, admittedly, a manager that gets sacked at Hibs and Paul Heckingbottom at Sheffield United. Now, if they were to move to Celtic, they'd be working under an elite manager in Brendan Rodgers that has done it down south as well in the Premier League, and he could be one that could progress their career even further. So I think these two players are quite interesting links, and I would... They're players that, when you've heard about these players before, when you hear teams talk about these youngsters, then when they get linked to your team, you automatically get excited, because you're like, these players can make a difference in the first team. So I guess it's I watch this space, but on that midfield, I just want to go back to the article that you wrote yesterday that came out today. David Turnbull, what a performance on Saturday afternoon. Yesterday, Celtic were putting a lot of their social media out regarding David Turnbull. Do you think that a contract renewal is in order, or is imminent with regard to that? Because I thought they were hinting a wee bit. They put up a tweet yesterday with the memo emoji, the one that looks like a contract signing. I think they're just testing the water, and I think there'll be a contract extension announced.
It wouldn't surprise me, because, as I said in the article, David Turnbull's got one wonderful thing going for him. The manager likes him a lot.
Mhm.
He called him a talent, and then he's more or less saying to him, don't waste that talent. But it's up to you now. You will get that contract if you can perform like that consistently. So, depending on how people thought about Turnbull's performance on Saturday, he scored 2 goals and was involved in helping assist another. Other people think he didn't play particularly well, so just depends on your prism, doesn't it? I thought he played very well. My father turned to me as they were about to announce the man of the match, said, who do you think? I says, Turnbull will get it, but it should be Matt O'Reilly or Kyogo. Just as he said Turnbull, and I said he got it for his 2 goals, and obviously setting up the goals, or helping, being involved in the move for one of them. So everybody sees things differently, don't they? So, which is the beauty of it. I think Turnbull has a real opportunity here and a chance to impress somebody who, he only needs to impress one guy, and that's the manager. And the manager's impressed with him anyway, because he knows him from before, and he's extolling his virtues. If that's not a kind of message from Brendan to say, go and earn yourself a contract, make this club make you an offer, play like that, but you can't just play like that once. Has to be consistent for me to be in this team, and the same goes for all the players. And going back to what you're talking about midfielders, I want all sorts of options in that midfield, Ryan. He wanted 4 centre halves. I want 8 midfielders. I want to pair many 3 or 4 from 8. I don't care if we're overloaded with midfielders. I want an answer to the question every time it's posed. Who have we got? Who can pick a lock? Who can combat a high press? Who's cool under pressure? I want every one of those boxes ticked, and I don't care who the player is and how old he is, 21, 23, 35. I don't care. I want an answer to every question that Celtic are going to be posed, both domestically and in Europe, with regards to our midfielders. And I tell you what, I do trust the manager. I trust him implicitly. I just think things are different this time from the first time when he was at the club. He's inherited a wonderful set of players. He's inherited a wonderful set of circumstances. And his shtick, as I always say, is to improve players. You've got a world record 8th domestic treble team at your disposal. You're targeting doing well in Europe. And people are saying we've no signed players to compete in Europe. We don't know how we're going to compete in Europe until it rolls along. Comes along, you can pick holes in Saturday's game. Saturday was all about winning. Style and substance will come later, but you had to get off to a flyer, and Celtic did. And yep, you can call it teething problems. Just maybe it wasn't as I'll go back to my phrase that I always use: rip roaring, free scoring, and never boring as people wanted it to be. But I tell you what, there was certain aspects of it that I think you said it as well. There's certainly more positives than negatives for me, and I include Kyogo playing in a deeper role. I mean, some of his layoffs and some of his link-up play was brilliant. But not to forget, what's the one thing that Kyogo did do that he's used to doing? He hit a ball first time that came across into the net. He's not lost his ability to do that. Never lose his ability to do that. He's just been asked to perform a different role because the manager's putting his own stamp on this team. And I'm all for that. And whether we'll improve in Europe or not is the big question, is the big ask. But that'll roll around when it does, and we'll take our chances. We'll see the draw and see what happens. But people at Turnbull, I think, deserve a new deal because he's got so much more to give. Matt O'Reilly said that too. And I tip my hat to Turnbull for the fact that he's not saber rattled, has he? He's not spat the dummy out. He hasn't gone to the newspapers, to say, complain about lack of game time. And Matt O'Reilly told you this guy deserves it. So he's obviously knuckled down in training and just battled through it, ploughed through it. There's a senses an opportunity under this new manager. And Matt O'Reilly's loving playing under this new manager. I think a lot of players will love playing under this new manager. So go and prove that you should be in the team under this new manager. It's up to the individuals because Brendan Rodgers can only give you so much. It's up to your talent to dictate that you become a mainstay in that team. And I think every Celtic footballer at the club just now will be under Rodgers' spell and will want to cement a place in that team. So they'll be doing their damnedest. I'd love to see training. They was told the training was high intensity under Ange Postecoglou. It'll be just as high under Brendan Rodgers because the bar that they set is so high, and I think Rodgers will demand the same. And which is why you maybe see some surprises here and there because Rodgers, I just trust him. I think he knows the game and he knows the club. And he's just feeling his way back in. But that it's like putting on your favourite clothes and your favourite jacket, isn't it? He said, kind of, I'm home. It's good to see so many people. And, he feels very comfortable there, doesn't he? And I think over the course of time, then I think the Celtic supporters will relax and feel more comfortable with what Brendan Rodgers is trying to do with his team and the way they're going to play. So, and I include the likes of Turnbull and that, whom many might have thought would be out the door. But many thought that about Rodgers, didn't they, as well, at one stage? And he turned it all around. So I'm hoping that can happen for the likes of Turnbull under Rodgers.
Yeah, it seems as if players, every spell that Rodgers has had with Celtic so far, I know he's just into his second, but in his last he had a couple of Renaissance players. You look at Stuart Armstrong, who went up a couple of levels due to Rodgers' coaching, and
yeah.
and maybe positional sense as well in terms of coaching him into being the best player that he can be. It seems as if Turnbull and O'Reilly are two players that are already starting to see the effects or the positive effects of having Rodgers as their manager. Kyogo too. You see Kyogo, I've never seen him play that role before, in which when he was going deeper and trying to affect the play, because usually he cuts a lonely figure up front and he'll maybe only get 7-8 touches, but he'll get a couple of goals and then that'll be fine. But he wanted to come in deep and overload that midfield and be another creative midfielder. And you've seen that goal, that fourth goal. I've not stopped talking about it since Saturday, but Kyogo turns into an attacking midfielder and Matt O'Reilly becomes the striker in that position. It's just a great assist, a great touch from Kyogo. He's got all the technical ability in the world. Matt O'Reilly with a stunning finish, puts his laces through it, as we said. He's got to do that more often. But yeah,
what did you notice about Kyogo though in that role? He wanted to be involved. He was desperate to be involved, right? So clearly listening to his instructions. You're knowing that role not to be involved. You have to be involved. You have to be, you have to be aware, spatially aware, tactically aware. To be able to be this link-up guy. But also, don't forget what your role in the team is as well. You're a goal scorer.
Mm-hmm.
And the couple of times I actually thought Kyogo could have had first-time shots when the ball came across, but probably didn't realise he was bearing, or he was in the position to shoot, because I think he was thinking, can I lay this off? Is there somebody in a better position? So I wouldn't want that taken out his game, because someone said he could have had a hat-trick. He probably could have had a hat-trick, Kyogo on Saturday, but I still maintain that, lots of people are saying he'll no score as many as, was it 34 he got last season? Goals this season, playing in that that I'm not so sure. Because he's just a cracking wee footballer. So I think if he can do that, then, and also assist, his stats will be frightening. They'll be absolutely frightening. So he's just a buzz bomb of energy, and there were times, because you said he was kind of isolated up front, where he wasn't involved in the play, and then he would flash into life when the ball came across and he'd get his goal. But if you can combine Kyogo to do the both of those things, burst into life in the 6-yard box, as well as, from the 18, 20-yard mark, contribute with assists, what a player you're unleashing. And that's hard to detect, it's hard to pin down. And I'm all for it. And it's a nice tweak from Rodgers, isn't it? On the team. So, as I say, I just thought Kyogo's contribution Saturday was excellent. When you saw him playing that deep role, you had maybe reservations about it. But Saturday was a good early sign. Granted, it wasn't the toughest test, but the test will get tougher, i.e. Sunday, a huge test for everybody. So, I will watch that with interest going forward. But you can't, talent's talent, isn't it? First time shot, smacks it into the net from a baddest pass, which was excellent as well. And then the layoff or give to Matt O'Reilly's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. That vision, just to see that. And then, Matt O'Reilly does the rest. So these are things I think they're working on, certainly in training. And when you see it come off in a game, I think these are goals that please managers, let alone fans, but they please managers because it's something that you've worked on. And you can see that, can't you? You can look at that and say, Celtic will be working on something like that. That's good. And that was a game where they're trying to get into their stride. Wait till they get into their stride.
Yeah, absolutely. It's tougher tests they will present themselves, especially against Aberdeen at Pittodrie. I know they dropped points in the first game of their season, but it'll be their first home game for them. They'll be wanting to make an impact. They want to do their best to be as high as they can in the league. I know they finished third last season, but they'll be aspiring to potentially try and finish even higher than that. I know at the start of the season, you've always got grand hopes or big well, maybe not expectations, but hopes that you can separate the top two. But they're under Barry Robson, a player that we know well, a man that we know well as well, for his time at Celtic. I remember his debut. I remember his debut at Pittodrie. First touch of the ball was a free kick and a goal. Yeah, he was a really good servant, and I think undervalued as well in that particular period of time. Was massive. Him and Paul Hartley especially were massive in the winning of that title back 10, 15 years ago. I think it was about 15 years ago. Time flies, but
2008.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, 15 years ago. That's time is absolutely flying by. But yeah, I think Sunday will be a tougher test, especially for a player like Turnbull. It makes you think who will be fancied in that position, whether that'll be Turnbull or will Rio Hatate come back into the side. There's part of me that does want Rio Hatate to come back in, especially for that tougher game. Hatate's he's a bit of a safety blanket when it comes to a midfielder. You know what sort of performance you're going to get if he's on his game. He can run games single-handedly. But, Turnbull has given Rodgers a decision to make, even early doors with who he's going to play in the midfield. Even Matt O'Reilly could step out and Hatate could come back in. It's quite fluid in that way, the midfield is. So it'll be interesting to see who they choose for that game, but I'm sure we'll be talking about that more as we get closer to the game. Just as a sort of to talk some more about some rumours. I don't know if you've seen one of the. I think it's a silly rumour. I don't think it will happen. But I seen that a couple of West Ham sites last night were linking Celtic to Mikel Antonio, the 33-year-old striker who has been there for what seems like absolutely ages. But I know he was a wide player, but he then get converted to a striker, and David Moyes seems to have got the best out of him at West Ham. He's not really one that fits into the sort of project signings that we've been going for in the past few years. 33 years old, but he's certainly a player that if he joined, he could certainly make an impact, couldn't he?
Yeah, he could make an impact, but I guess there's some that you treat with kind of, I don't know, I don't think disdain's the right word, but you know what I mean. You just kind of, some rumours you just think, nah, not for me, or not for
4 years ago.
Club's going, yeah. But I can't see it. But you never rule anything out, do you, Ryan? But it's one of the more weirder transfer links that Celtic have had this summer. Will it happen? I would say nailed on no, but hey, nothing surprises you in football, does it? Nothing surprises we would come on in the afternoon and say Celtic have offered Antonio a deal. He signed the deal, so you never rule anything out, do you? So, but I have to say, I'd be very surprised if Celtic signed a 33-year-old forward, and who'd be on a hefty wage, wouldn't he? I would have thought.
Absolutely. So. Yeah, I would agree with that. I know that West Ham sold one of their strikers yesterday, Scamacca, to Atalanta in Italy. He's went back to his homeland, so that'll be a position that they look to strengthen in further. I don't think that Antonio will be their starting striker for next season. I know they've got a couple of other players that sort of fit into that mould as well, but it's one of those sort of pie in the sky. I think it's putting two and two together. The fact that Celtic are busy in the transfer window. I know Leeds were also interested in him. That's maybe a move that I could see him going to more than Celtic. Leeds, big club down in the Championship, looking to get back up under Daniel Farke. I think he could score a few goals for them in the Championship. He can definitely put himself about. There's older strikers playing their trade down there, and Jamie Vardy, he's playing for Leicester. He's now getting a start for Leicester again after being a bench player in the Premier League, so it isn't all bad for those sort of players. But yeah, I think it is a pie in the sky stuff for Mikel Antonio. Don't get me wrong, 5-6 years ago, it would have been a great signing. You would love him in a Celtic Rangers game because he'd put himself about. His brute strength is absolutely incredible. His physical strength and pushing players off the ball matched with his speed. Been a great Premier League player over the past 5-6 years for West Ham, but I just think if he was to join Celtic, then you would see the gradual decline happen. and then he'd be expecting to play because he's an established player that's played in the Premier League. That could then cause problems. I know he seems like a really good guy off the pitch, but I think it would cause more problems than it's worth, especially with his age profile.
Nah, I just don't think Brendan would sanction that. Brendan Rodgers would sanction such a move for a player like Antonio. Could be wrong, but I just don't see it. I just think, as you say, it might cause disharmony. And also, we've got some decent enough options up front. I think lots of people think we want to sign another striker. I wouldn't be opposed to that, but certainly not a 33-year-old. I'd want somebody better and younger and fitter and hungrier. So, yeah, I say you never rule anything out in football because it has a weird habit of come back and sticking the head in you, hasn't it? When you've kind of nailed your colour to the mast to a certain issue. So we shall see. But I wouldn't have thought so. In that case, I'll make a case for myself then. Sign this Antonio at 51, you know what I mean? But there you go. It's not going to happen, right? Let's put it that way.
No, I know it's basically just a rumor that's, I don't even think it's went out of control. I think people read it and they were like, nah, this isn't happening. It just doesn't fit in with the policy. I think the days of signing, I don't want to see players like past it because I don't think Antonio is past it in terms of a footballing capacity. It's not the same as maybe signing like a Kazim Richards or a Carlton Cole, a journeyman that are at the end of their career. He is a very established Premier League player, but I don't see it happening. I think he does have another good move in on down south, maybe for a couple of years in the Championship. But as far as Celtic goes, I don't think it makes sense. I'd much rather Celtic give those sorts of opportunities to O, because he's shown enough for me that he can make an impact up front when required. I know we go back to the Athletic Club game when we talk about him, but that pass to Turnbull for the goal was lovely. I would quite like it to be the opposite at times. I like Turnbull to play it to O for that chance, but Turnbull's every bit as good as a striker when he's in that position on the park.
Yeah.
He's a really good finisher of the ball, with the ball at his feet. Yes, he plays games at his own pace, but at the same time, he's if you can keep him to that pace and let him dictate games, then you'll get a right good player on your hands. I'm looking forward to seeing what O can do more this season. He didn't make it off the bench, I don't think, on Saturday. That's an interesting one. I thought he would have maybe got more game time. It seemed as if Yang was preferred on the bench to him in terms of coming onto the pitch for the last 20 minutes. A game like Aberdeen at Pittodrie is a player that'd be a game that you would want him to come on and potentially make an impact, especially if Celtic are maybe struggling to break Aberdeen down. Then he can come on and maybe cause chaos in that box, because he loves the physicality of the. I think he loves the physicality in the league and what his game brings, and the fact that he scored 2 goals as well on the last day of the season against Aberdeen means he's got history against the team. He'll be looking to add more to that reputation.
I'm all for any player that can cause havoc and to defences, especially front players. But yeah, I just think guys are just slowly getting used to Brendan's way of playing, and and it'll come to fruition, and they'll all be utilised to maximise their potential and their abilities and capabilities, all being one of them. We've also got Marco Tilio as well, who I'm really excited to see whenever he's fit. And Yang's impressed, hasn't he? He's been a bit eager to impress, but he has impressed. So, and I think had a couple of decent performances of late, and I think people want to see more of him. And he might get his chance with Kyogo playing in a different kind of role.
Yeah, I'd love to see that.
So I would put the kettle on for that. That will happen at some point. I think that it's in the manager's thinking, with Kyogo not being the focal point in attack. So I genuinely, and it is my old man used to say this when he was an amateur manager, but the old horses for courses type games.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Sunday falls into that category. You know what you're going to get up there, and I think you're going to see an Aberdeen team who might try and spring out the traps and, go toe-to-toe with you, see what you're made of. And I think Barry Robson's trying to build a team like that where, make Pittodrie one of those places where you know you're in a game. Celtic's record up there of late's been pretty decent. But on the odd occasion, they've given you a game, not the Callum McGregor game, because that was just a dreadful game of football. Well, they just
There's
did
only one team in that game.
no ambition to come forward and go over the halfway line and played for a 0-0, which they didn't get. So I think, you'll see a totally different Aberdeen. And again, I trust the managers will know that, and I trust them to find the solutions to, the problems that they will pose. And because we have the squad to do that, can we add 2 or 3 more? We probably could, but we've good enough players to cope with what Aberdeen can throw at you. But it's as tough a test as you'll get at this early juncture in the season. I think going to Pittodrie's second game, but that's good. That's what I want, Ryan. I want this Celtic team to be tested. I want them to be involved in decent level of competition against teams that have a goal ahead of Europe, because you're going to get tested severely when you come to the Champions League. So the bigger the test and the bigger the kind of game you have domestically, then that stands you in good stead, as long as they can come out on top. It's when these games happen and you don't come out on top, then you've got a problem. But I look around and I just think Celtic at this moment in time, maybe 2 or 3 players short in various positions of being, every manager's 2 or 3 players short of the ideal team, isn't he? But I fully expect Celtic to be in a right good game on Sunday, but I still think that Celtic have got the personnel and the game to cope. I just want to see how they cope with it. That's what intrigues me most under Brendan Rodgers now, because it's going to be infinitely different from the last manager. As I say, I don't particularly want to talk about the last managers because Celtic have moved on, but it's going to be a different kind of philosophy and style that we're playing. But the coping mechanisms are always the same, aren't they? In terms of, if you go a goal down, what happens then? How do you tweak it? What's he going to do, or what's he going to do to make sure they don't go a goal down? Or because Aberdeen will come at you. I think they'll be a lot braver than they've been against Celtic in the past, and I'm intrigued to see how Celtic go about their business on Sunday.
Yeah, you would hope so. They'd need to show more than they did the last time they played against Celtic, because I remember doing the stats bomb piece for that. They didn't even register a single shot, never mind a shot on target, on trophy day. So you would expect them at home. Obviously, their first home game of the season against Celtic's always a big occasion at Pittodrie. You'd expect them to come flying out the traps and sort of stake a claim that they are going to be a bit of a force in the league this season. Maybe not challenging for the league, but definitely in the higher end of the table going forward. I mean, that's us. We've been going on for 58 minutes now in this show on a Tuesday. I didn't think we'd be able to get on this far, but we've certainly managed to pad it out, and we've spoke a lot about all the different transfer rumours and dealings. So yeah, it's been a really good show. I've really enjoyed this one. I think we've spoke about every rumour that's came out, every sort of fresh rumour that's came out. I don't even think we spoke about Scott McKenna, who I wrote about yesterday, but I think with the likely incoming of Gustaf Lagerbielke, that'll be rubbish, to be honest. But just before I finish off, or before we finish off for today, if I could just direct everybody once again to the bottom of the screen. If you subscribe to the Celtic Way website, you'll be supporting top quality football journalism, covering the club you love, articles from myself, from Tony, from Aidan. We've got analysis pieces from Duco James and Alan Morrison, scouting pieces from Stuart Ross, instant reaction from the matches, as well as videos at the weekend. So whatever you fancy, we've got it on the Celtic Way website. If you're looking for any Celtic Way, or if you're looking for any Celtic minded journalism, then the Celtic Way is the best place to be for it. All that's left for me to say is thank you very much, Tony, for joining me today.
Pleasure, as always. Thank you.
And thank you everybody in the comments for getting involved. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow to discuss everything Celtic. Cheers, guys.